Welcome. Hey, Tiff.
Hey,
Welcome
Alex.
to yet another special broadcast from BossFM and Black News Alerts. If you're just tuning in for the first time, a little bit about this broadcast. It's available on multiple platforms. And so if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you can share this broadcast right now. If you are in the BossFM radio app or the Black News Alerts app, you can share this as well. And if you don't have time to watch, you can download the BossFM radio app right now. And we are live on BossFM Talk. So for those of you listening to regular Monday programming on Boss FM, sorry for the interruption, but we're here to
Not
talk about the
sorry.
state, of Black America. And first of all, I'm Alex Haynes.
I'm Tiffanie Lanelle.
I'm in New York City, and Tiff is in Atlanta. We both host shows on Boss FM Talk, but on days like this, we like to not just remember and commemorate the legendary Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but we also like good on our commitment to Black America and really the type of content that we provide, content that we are serious and committed to sharing. I want to first thank our team that chose to work on this holiday, this black ass holiday, as I like to reference it, to make sure that we are able to do this. So without delay, and just some history, a lot of people are off on MLK, Tiff, and a lot of people are not. It's a non-negotiable for me. I mean, where I work right now here, obviously that's not a problem, but it's a
Right.
non-negotiable holiday for me. Before we do anything, I think it's important to talk about why we even have this holiday. And a lot of people just believe that, you know, his birthday is weird and it falls on different Mondays. Other people believe that we just have the holiday because it's his actual birthday. But those of us that know a little bit about history know that we would not have this holiday if it were not for the work of his wife, Coretta Scott King. So I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that history. We'll start there, and then we will kind of comb through where we are, why this holiday is important, but most importantly, where we are as Black Americans and Brown Americans. You're included as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit, and we'll also try to keep it light. Sometimes these special programs can get a little stuffy. And I don't feel stuffy about it at all. I am a little. If you saw the footage that was captured, in our intro and our lead today, it's a little troubling to kind of find where we've come from and really what we've been through. And sometimes we're not even able to process that trauma that we're feeling, compiled with what the nation is experiencing right now. So on the brink of new leadership, there's a lot going on, but I want to talk more so about this holiday first. And then we've got an exciting show for you. So again, if you're just tuning in now, you're catching the end of what I'm saying. Make sure you share this feed wherever you're watching. In the Boss FM app, you can do it. In the Black News Alerts app, you can do it. On social media platforms, please share the app. You can also tweet along with us. And so, well, Tiff, I'll let you get started with the history and we'll go from there.
Sure. So just to let everyone know, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday does not just happen to fall on random Mondays. Martin Luther King's birthday is actually January 15th. However, every third Monday in January, we celebrate MLK Day. It's meant to be a day to celebrate the works and honor the legacy of Martin Luther King, but it's also meant to be a day of service. It's a day on and not a day off necessarily. So that is the purpose of MLK Day, and with all of the footage, and that's just a small portion of the footage of what we went through over the past year. It's now more important. I won't say never, because we've been fighting for this as Black and brown people in this country for generations, literally. But it is still a relevant day. It's still a relevant holiday, and it will be for some time to come. So, Alex, I know you and I always take MLK Day off. I think since we have been in the workforce, we have taken MLK Day off, and not just because it's near our birthdays personally, but it's always been a special day for us. And it's a little different in a panoramic, pandemic, Panda Bear whatever you're calling this thing that we are perpetually in. I've seen a lot of posts and tweets of folks trying to get ideas of different things they could do on MLK Day where you can't necessarily go out and do the same type of service you normally would do. But my hope is that you take
Talk
this
to us, Mother
opportunity.
Africa.
Listen, I came with it today, okay? I'm ready. My hope is that you do that every day and not just on MLK Day. And that's really something we have to remember when to talk about when it comes to MLK Day, that it's not supposed to just be a 1 day a year thing. You should be finding ways to do service and acts of kindness and fight the racial justice fight in this country and wherever you are, no matter what country. There's always an injustice. And Martin Luther King says an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. So you have to do this work every day and not just on MLK Day. But it is not Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. That's January 15th. That's why, some of you saw a bunch of birthday posts for MLK a few days ago. But today, find some way to do service, but find a way to carry that beyond today.
You know what? And I'll say that I mean we are also January birthday, so it's fitting to mention. I'll be honest. I think I celebrate MLK, and I think even growing up, it was a day of service in my house, and it wasn't an option. I don't think it was not a day off from school for me. It was not a day that I could celebrate my birthday, which is one day before his actual birthday. It was never that. And reflecting, before we move into the seriousness, I would be really upset if I shared a birthday with him. I'd be upset. I would be really upset. I would just. So I don't. It's the day before, and I'm okay.
Oh my goodness! I almost said something so petty, but we're not doing that today.
We're not doing petty today. At least not intentionally. I think what happens when you cover this country, you really can't you can't not be petty. There's not really an option there. When you tell the truth, and I think it's telling the truth. When we lie, we can kind of be really standard and stuffy and elude the facts. But when you talk about the facts are actually petty. And I think the treatment of Black, anyway, I don't want to derail where we are actually supposed to be. So unless you've been under a rock, and I know, let me say this before we start, because this is not a triggering conversation. It's a conversation that you can be a part of, and it's really important that you are a part of it. This is also one of those broadcasts that I know will live on, kind of like we did a promo, or not a promo, but a broadcast for Juneteenth, and I was hearing about it for weeks after, because it's something that even if you don't have the time to tap into it right now, something that you should. I think it's also very difficult for people to acknowledge trauma and acknowledge pain, especially if it's always been there. And that's one thing that I think that we are able to effectively discuss and unpack and strategize around making solutions from. But a good friend of mine hosted a session over the weekend on ending racism. And I think that if that conversation doesn't lead how we talk about or remember Martin Luther King Jr., then we are at a mute point, right? And I think sometimes people are at the point to where they've just accepted the natural, right? They've accepted that what is what is. And I feel like I know how to get ahead, even with all of these barriers in front of me, even with police brutality in front of me, even with systemic and systematic racism permeating lifestyles. And, y'all thought there was some sort of awakening in 2020 with the unrest, because the brutality was so visible. It was so forthright. And we'll talk a little bit about allies today, and I don't want to alienate. My goal is never to alienate, but I want to put context in there, because I think Black Lives Matter to Black people is literally about their lives. Black Lives Matter to so many people has become a chant and a cause. And if you're one of those people that you believe that your life is cause driven, you've taken it up as a cause, and you've made Black Lives Matter the cause, but not Black lives. Right? In you doing that, Black lives do not matter. And so that movement, in some instance, has been accosted by well-meaning liberal allies. And so as we kind of unpack this, I just wanted to say that because I think this conversation is really important for those of you that feel like you are an ally, but sometimes you feel like you're hitting a brick wall. I think it's also interesting, and we're not really jumping into the protest lane, but I will offer this piece of advice because I haven't had a show all year. So I think it's fitting that I say this. If you are advocating for Black people in in mass, and no Black people are around, you should be asking questions. I'll just leave that there. But I think it's really important that you understand that we need to be there. We need to be there. So with that, if you've been under a rock, and I know a lot of people they have been under a rock deliberately because it's hard to recognize that pandemonium is truly ensuing around you, right? And so taking, and imagine just for Black people right now, you can imagine where we are. Would you take just Black Lives, what we saw last year, and we showed you just a small preview of what 2020 looked like, and then encroaching upon a pandemic that has really been crippling for minds. And so you wonder, how can I move forward? How do I progress? How do I even successfully advocate when we're so disconnected? And so I think one thing that we want to cover there, especially for people that have been under a rock or feeling like they can't connect with there's too much noise, is to slow that down, right? As we kind of unpack all of the information and look through specifically what has happened, how we can prevent it in the future. And I think prevention is something that has to be at the forefront of our tongues. When we look at information that's available and that has been available, there's an ignorance that has ensued, that people are either deliberately ignorant or unwillingly ignorant to information. And so when we have information, we know. But what is also going to be important, not just for those watching this broadcast today or participating in service to honor Dr. King in any way, is to listen to that information, to listen to what has been said, right? We're going to talk about the state of the country, but it's really interesting that there are so many people. I literally said this the day after January 6th, that I'm extremely offended by all the people that are shocked about where we are, because there have been loudspeakers and bullhorns shouting from mountaintops and city rooftops, explaining to you the detriment of where we are. And really, I was trying not to say this word, but the detriment of white supremacy, and how like Dr. King worked day in and day out to dismantle it and dismantle that system, and even to bring awareness to the system. But there has been a willingness to ignore that tangible information. And so if we accomplish anything, is that you get some information that you can digest, some information that you choose to research a little bit more, and information that you don't ignore.
Right. And I'm just thinking about this. So I know we didn't really talk about this before, but a movie just came out called One Night in Miami. And if you have not seen it, I implore you to watch it as soon as possible. But I want to kind of frame some of our conversation around, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. So if you haven't watched it, no spoiler alert here or anything like that. But the movie is about 4 different Black men in 4 different arenas, industries, and their role, so to speak, in the civil rights movement. And so I think when you look at this fight, this goal of being an accomplice and not just an ally, this goal of getting your hands dirty in the work, like Dr. King did, it's not just, well, I'm not a politician and I don't want to be a politician, and I'm not a lawmaker and I don't want to be a lawmaker. It's finding whatever way in your arena, your industry, your circle that you can get involved in this work. If you're not a politician, but you're a singer, great. The next time you get on stage, do 1 or 2 sentences to talk about the struggle, the fight, the Black Lives Matter movement. If you are a teacher, you know, finding a different way to educate your students, no matter whether your students are predominantly white, predominantly Black and brown, a mixture of both, whatever, adjust, you know, how you teach certain topics. I'm very interested to see how the year 2020 and the Trump presidency and administration and all of this other trash that we've been through will be taught in the future. Because looking back when we were in school, when it came down to learning Black history, I learned about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. I didn't learn about Claudette Colvin. I didn't learn about Ida B. Wells, except for my mother. I didn't learn about all of the different inventions that Black people made in this country. I didn't learn about Henrietta Lacks and her contribution to medical advancement and technology. So it's finding whatever way in your industry and area to fight the system that is oppressing and killing Black and brown people in this country. And that is the kind of service that we're talking about today. One Night in Miami has Sam Cooke, Muhammad Ali. I'm going to forget the other two. I know Jim Brown, and I'm forgetting one. I'll think of it in a minute. But they were all in different areas, all in different arenas, all different industries, and still each had different ways that the civil rights movement hit them or that they touched the movement in different ways. And that's highlighted in the film. And so if you don't get anything else from, you know, the conversation today, tomorrow, whenever you are listening or watching this, get that, find your lane and find a way to get your hands dirty and get into the work in your lane. And that's how you be an accomplice and not just an ally. It's not just about wearing a cute button on your shirt that says Black Lives Matter. That's cute, thank you. But it is about really digging into the work of what it means to be anti-racist, what it means to seek justice and equality for all across the board. Black Lives Mattering is literally the minimum. So that's the kind of work that we want to honor and celebrate and continue moving forward.
Absolutely. And you were just missing out Malcolm X.
How did I forget him? Thank you.
No problem. No problem. I think also in framing the conversation, it's really important that you digest information, right? And it's not all at the same time. There's a lot of information, a lot going on, but you living in a bubble or in a world that does not include information about you could be detrimental to your life. And so our goal is always just to provide information and context. And I was going to wait on this, but I wanted to jump ahead and talk about a story that happened in 2018. And I think tying this in just because of where we were, it just makes sense to hit this now instead of later. In my own research, a story that I didn't follow, and I follow Black news all day. A story that I was not aware of out of Wisconsin, a young Black man, teenage Black man was in the car with his grandmother. He was pulled over. And the reason we're sharing the story, I want to give context that it's not just George Floyd. It's not just Breonna Taylor. It's not just Ahmaud Arbery. It's just not Jacob Blake. It's not just Rayshard Brooks. And that's just in the last 365 days, names that you know. It is situations that happened because of the system. And we're going to show you this brief clip. I'm going to give context to the clip. Then I'm going to let you watch it. And then we'll talk about it right after the break. But before we jump into it, I want you to understand he's a young teenage boy in the car. He's a young Black boy in the car with his white grandmother. They are pulled over. As the story, the police officers say that there has been a report. This was not a published report. It was not released in any body cam footage, that a Black man had stolen a car and was robbing a white woman. The police officer pulled this grandmother over who's driving and her Black grandson in the back seat. I want you to see the footage, and right after the jump, we'll talk about it.
Come out with your hands up, face away from us. Face away. Go to the sidewalk, face away. Hands up high in the air. face away from us. Walk to the sidewalk. Look.
And if you want to put them on the sidewalk here, that'll be okay for me.
All right. Stop. Get down on your knees. On your knees. Keep your hands up. Don't move. You understand? Is everything okay?
This is my grandson.
That's your grandson?
Yes. When I went up and touched him out.
All right.
Okay.
That's good. Here's the thing. Did you see me park there on the side of the driveway? Oh, you saw me park there? Okay. So some guy comes up to me in his car and says, actually there were two black guys lobbying the ladies in this blue Lexus. I had to act. Somebody telling me.
Okay, but I'm telling her this is my grandson.
Yes, and I know.
This is my best friend. We've known him since he was a baby.
All right, and I am certainly glad that that guy was mistaken or wanted to put me on a route or something that is not actually occurring. So I apologize. Oh, he's going to be released. Absolutely. So I apologize for that guy not knowing what he was talking about.
I'm sure he got two old white ladies in a car with a black kid and makes an assumption.
Well, he was black as well, so I don't know.
Oh my God. Well, then it's even worse.
I don't. Let me just get your name real quick.
Okay.
Look, he's all good. It's the grandson.
So, aside from what we've seen in this country, we don't know where that footage is. Like, we have dash cam footage. We don't have any body cam footage of the people that told these police officers. They weren't able to furnish that footage, so we don't know where it is. We don't know if it was true. But the concept of this, we talk about being in the world of misinformation, but even with this assumed information, if you watch the footage, how fast the partner cop drew his weapon for a teenage black boy in the car with his white grandmother. And the purpose of us showing that footage to frame this conversation is that it's not all about sensationalism. It's not all about what makes it from the White House or from your preacher's pulpit or from some rogue ass person that you follow on Facebook, right? And they have a lot to say and they're the person that gives you, like, it's not all about that. These situations are happening each and every day, and they continue to happen because silence perpetuates the complacency of those that should be advocating on behalf of this injustice, right? The system is working as designed. And if you followed either my show or Tiff's show or any coverage that we've done for a long time, it's not about fixing a broken system. The system is actually working as designed. This system has always been designed to oppress Black bodies in this country, and it's written into the fabric. It's more than just America's original sin of slavery. It's literally the fabric in which the country was built upon. And so it's perpetuated, especially by, and this is so apropos for today, because Dr. King literally wrote about this in a letter from a Birmingham jail, that it's not about the KKK and the white extremists and what we saw at the Capitol, but it's the people that watched that activity on January 6th and had nothing to say about it, or they are just ready to move on from it or want to join together in prayer. However, when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee for injustice of Black bodies, that wasn't the time. When Colin Kaepernick was taking a peaceful knee, which, again, I ask this question over and over and again, and I try not to yell, I get really excited about this. How much more peaceful and humble can you be when you're kneeling?
Right.
Like, when is the time? It wasn't the time then. It was not the time, like, over the summer. And people are literally more frustrated with a gas station burning than with rogue terrorists really attempting to take the country away.
It was absolutely an attempted coup. And you mentioned silence, and I'm going to be summarizing King quotes throughout because we're here for MLK Day. But King also mentioned the day our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And we cannot be silent about this Capitol attack. Nothing like this has happened in over a century. And I think that it's important to know there have only been 72 arrests in the Capitol attack. 72. However, during George Floyd protests, there were over 14,000 arrests in 49 cities. There were 127 arrests in Breonna Taylor protest. There were 427 arrests in DC alone for racial justice protests on unrest related charges. And all of these charges are on unlawful assembly or being out past curfew or blocking a roadway. These numbers are just ridiculous, to say the least. You arrested over 14,000 people in 49 cities for protesting when a unarmed black man was killed in this country. Yet rogue white supremacists and Trump supporters try to take over the Capitol. I'm sorry, not try, because they did take over the Capitol, let's be clear. And
they invaded, they intimidated, like all of these federal laws that are thrown at little black boys in the back seats of their grandmother's cars.
Right.
And somehow we can't find these people that took over the Capitol. And it's crazy, right? Because I think part of the reason that we have to, and I know that you're going somewhere, so I want to go back to that, but I think it's important to say that there's tons of misinformation out there, right? We live in the age of misinformation. It's the reason why people are partying in Atlanta during MLK weekend, in droves, because of misinformation. Oh, it's not that bad. We are a country that is not able to tackle a virus that countries all over the world are tackling because of misinformation. There's also a misinformation campaign at work to keep people in the framing of conservatism and Christianity complacent. And so by spewing rhetoric, I consume it because I work in it, repeating the rhetoric that Democrats were silent about the unrest in 2020, and no one spoke out about the burning cities. Like 49,000 people were arrested. There was plenty of speaking that was done.
Plenty.
There was also a lot of listening that was not done.
And that is the whole problem. It's like and I get it. We talked earlier about, if you've been sitting under a rock and then went through everything. And at this point, for some it's deliberate, for some it's trauma. And I think that we are not doing a good job, and not at the fault of us anyway. It is very difficult to manage trauma and healing while you're still in the act of what is causing the trauma in the first place. And I think that it is important for us to be able to continue to do this work, that we have to find a way to manage that, because the trauma will cause you to sit under a rock and not know that only 72 people have been arrested in the Capitol attack that occurred last week. That is the problem. So, or not.
Well, there's a campaign to keep people uninformed, but I think it's also important to, and this is not even me being shameless, but follow the sources that are giving you viable information.
Right.
Read the sources. Watch them. Share that. Do that. If you're just now tuning in now, share this, because it's information that will not get out, or gets out and it's ignored. And so it's really important that we frame this conversation and we frame our actions, and really more so the specific quote from, and I don't think that we have it because we didn't do that, but I think it's important. King said this in letter from Birmingham City Jail, written on April 16th, 1963. He says, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block is his stride toward freedom, in his stride toward freedom, is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice. Now, I want to slowly go through this quote, because that piece right there, who is more devoted to order than to justice, ties right into what we're saying about complacency and saying, oh, this is not the time. Well, can't they protest orderly? Well, Colin did. And not only did the president of the United States incite a riot against him, a mob riot against him, and called him expletives, and basically said he needed his ass kicked and he needed to be kicked off the field. And if he was the coach, the president of the United States, these unified states, said that about the peaceful protester. So it wasn't the time then. It doesn't seem to be the time now. King continues, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal that you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action. If you agree, why are you silent?
That part. And
because if you don't agree with the methods or the actions, but you do agree, but you will not ally
or be an accomplice,
you will not become adjacent to the mistreatment, do you really agree?
Right.
And I think that we can ask ourselves, this is not just a question for white people. Hell, we don't do any broadcasts for white people. They just watch them. Like, this is for Black people. And you agree with the methods and you don't like, but all that protesting, can't they go somewhere else? Can't they do that at another time? Well, that was in my way when I was trying to go to work. The answer is you can only go to work, Black person, because people did this before. Like, it all ties together. I want to get through this King quote because we got a lot to cover. He, like I said there, he ended with, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom. Now, that Black people, that don't have nothing to do with us. But essentially, when you say, I don't agree with the method, or can it wait, or can they do it later, and you become adjacent to that level of thinking, you are then deliberately setting delayed justice and freedom. Like you are participating in that specifically. You are making the conscious decision to say this person doesn't need to be free right now because I am inconvenienced. But you can't see that you weren't inconvenienced with Colin on the field until you wanted to be.
I'm reading a book called The Time Is Now. And if that is not a more poignant statement, then I don't know what is. Like, if not now, then, and Alex, I said this to you before we came on, if not now, then when? If not us, then who? Because at some point, surely you've got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Absolutely.
And I think that, again, we have to find a way to deal with the trauma and our healing that has to take place. But we also cannot just rush to reconciliation without acknowledgement of the trauma, without acknowledgement of the wrongs, without acknowledgement of the policies that need to be changed, without acknowledgement of the fact that this asshat clown is trying to do 100 commutations. Huh?
I said we tried.
I didn't try. I never promised that. He's trying to do 100 commutations and pardons before he even leaves office. So and that's not a good thing, y'all. Like, at some point, we have to come up from our rock of protection and say, okay, enough is enough. What can I do? What do I need to do? I said I wasn't going to talk about the movie, so I won't do that. But again, finding your area and operating in that. Finding an area and operating in that, getting involved. We've talked extensively before about sitting in your representative space. It's even easier now because pandemic. So email them, call their office, especially if you just had someone new, if you just had a new representative elected in your district or in your state, send them an email and introduce yourself. Hi, hello, my name is Tiffanie. I'm one of your constituents. Here are my concerns for this legislative year. Can I get on your calendar to discuss my concerns? If you want verbiage, there are plenty of resources out there on what you can send to your congressman, congresswoman, what you can send to your representative, what you can say. So doing even simple things like that, paying attention to what's just going on in your community. This is going to sound really simple. I was watching a show on, I think, one of the streaming devices that I have, and a trigger word hit. One of the hosts said, oh, this is on this side of town where, a lot of investors and developers won't come because it's a transitional neighborhood. I said, wait a minute, that sounds like gentrification. And so I started looking up the host of these HGTV shows and realized half of them are going through and gentrifying neighborhoods and kicking out the long living residents in those areas. I'm done. I'm done watching you. So,
well, see, Tiff, and I knew we were going to get into some sort of educational discussion because it's really important, because there are people that understand that gentrification is coming and they stand by it, not understanding the ramifications or how it could be really detrimental to them, right? And so
right.
I think that there are people that are sick and tired of seeing their neighborhoods not growing. And so I wanted to, you hit one point and I wanted to hit it. I wanted to talk about how we're going to hit that in Unmuted Nation. You said, have you written your congressperson? There is people that will help you write those letters. You don't even need help to do it. But I wanted to say, now is the time. The people that you need advocating on your behalf, they have gotten elected. If you weren't paying attention, this is the time to push them. You don't take your foot off of their neck at all. So in places, we're definitely gonna do this on Unmuted Nation. That I'm gonna have a list of Congress people that you should be connected with them on social media. You should be following what they're saying. You should be able to reach out to them in your cities, right? When you start to get active, when you start to make movement, they get nervous because they want to be reelected.
Right.
And they are first and foremost elected for you. They are first and foremost elected for you to represent you. Your senator is there to make sure that you can tap into the services, not just that this country offers, but that your state offers. So knowing the difference between your congressperson and what they do and how they work for you, because they do. We focus on the president and he works for us and he's in the people's house and all that stuff. By the time you can bitch all you want and probably get, your letter to his desk as well. But there are steps that you can take right now. Your local mayor, your local council person. There's a council person on your city council right now, and this is blanket, that needs to go. They need to go. And you may be the person. If you are sick of those damn potholes, if you are sick of your grocery stores not having fresh produce, if you are sick of your schools not having the right resources, that all begins with equality. And so the moment that we are able to tap into equality for all, right? Offering, there's a panelist on my cabinet that joins often, and she says regularly that providing equal access to all does not marginalize those that already have it. You lose absolutely nothing by giving people standard services and survival services, right? And so we're clouded amongst these people that push disinformation. We're going to turn into a socialist society. We're not. It's not. That's just not who we are. It's not going to happen. But also understanding the ramification of gentrification. They may come into your neighborhood that your family's been in for 70 years and not owning anything and say, we're going to knock everything down and build you a new apartment so that you can sign on and be on the side of that. The lasting effects are much more detrimental and dangerous when you have the ability to speak out to your current leaders or control who the next leader is. And so we're so focused on being against each other, and we're in this culture of forcing people out and hollering impeachment and removal from office. But the first and foremost thing that we should be doing is voting to put the right people in office. And if you've ever been discouraged, you should not be, because Georgia showed you this year or last year that it can happen. Now, it took some work. It didn't just happen because people woke up and decided that they needed to vote. But it took people like Stacey Abrams and Latasha and the people that were working on the ground in Georgia to eliminate the suppression that was happening, to keep your name on the voter roll. And now they're working overtime to reverse everything that was done. And so it's important that you get involved, not just in the South, not just in the Northeast or over in California, but really understanding that the rights that you have are totally predicated on how vocal you are about what you need.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to, we're talking about politicians and your mayor and council and all of that. My neighborhood was able to basically get new management at our local grocery stores just because we complained to the corporate office. It can be something as simple as that. I'm tired of not being able to get fresh fruit. Okay, round some of your neighbors up together, contact your local Publix, your Kroger, your whatever. If the local level doesn't work, contact the corporate office. If that doesn't work, go the next step. If that doesn't work, contact your local news affiliates. It can be something as simple as that, going for and seeking justice and equality for all. Start in your own community, if not going beyond that. But this is the work that goes beyond today. It goes beyond MLK Day. It goes beyond Black History Month. And I know we were talking about the history of MLK Day. There are 2 states that celebrate Robert E. Lee Day right alongside with MLK Day. Work to change that. That is absolutely horrendous. There is a Confederate Heritage Month in April. Get rid of that shit. It's in 7 states. I don't, almost really went off. I don't,
got mad.
listen,
She done got mad.
I don't understand it. The Confederacy was treasonous. It was treasonous. What happened at the Capitol was treasonous. There's no way around it. They are not patriots, Ivanka Trump. They are not good people on both sides.
Okay. I want to jump into what you just said about Confederate, and I want to show you. I want to show you this parallel. I want you to see this parallel of how things happen before our eyes with us not paying attention. The nation celebrated as Mississippi passed legislation and they voted to abolish the Confederate flag in 2020. Now, during the panini, as everything had taken off, and we were knee deep in the pandemic. Right after that was passed, the Mississippi governor declared April Confederate Heritage Month. The Confederacy was treasonous. The people that seceded from attempted to secede from the United States, attempted a coup on the United States, then their descendants just did it again. Like they just did it again. Like, we're in the same place. And so right before your eyes, I know that you were focused on the stimulus, right? Or focused on how to stay alive or dying relatives because it was a pandemic. The Mississippi governor in April 2020 April 2020 declared April Confederate Heritage Month.
The whole month.
In the United States of America. That just happened. That's not something from the 1960s that we need to repeal. It's not like, no, he didn't put up a new statue of Robert E. Lee. He just made it a month that we are going to declare and decree and relish in our Confederate heritage. What? We need to keep going. I didn't want to stop us there, but I think it's really important to mention that these types of things are happening before our eyes. It's really important to mention that this kind of stuff is still happening and it's still rampant. And because we're silent, we'll continue to see that.
The time is now, period. It just is. We have given plenty of information on ways to get involved, things that you can do. So for all of the people tweeting and Facebooking and Googling ways to do service and get involved on MLK Day, we just gave you plenty. What does your local grocery store look like? What are your options? Do you live in a food desert? Do you live in a food swamp? And those are some of the things that, Alex was talking about, things they're talking about at Unmuted Nation. We both will be talking about this at Unmuted Nation and on Tiffanie Talks. Getting involved in, what type of landfills are near your communities, what type of improvements need to happen. Gentrification is only bad because it tends to push out the mom and pop businesses and the longtime residents of the area without any consideration for the history of the area. That is the problem with gentrification. So if someone comes in and they're pouring money back into the community that is there while improving it, I don't have an issue with that. But if you come in and you push out longtime residents and you push out the small businesses that have been looking out for those residents for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, when no one else would service those community residents, then that is when you have got to get the hell out, because you're not doing anybody any justice and any service. You are not doing anything by building your high rise where a good quality grocery store could go. And so if you're not going to do those things, I actually don't want to hear it. So contact your local representatives, contact your local store manager if you need to. Get to know some of your neighbors safely, because we still in a pandemic, panoramic panda bear. So safely, socially distance. Get to know your neighbors and see what improvements need to be done in your neighborhood. You are in control of this. And that is what a day on or a service day really is about. It's making that a life. It's not just a fleeting moment. We are all here to do a work, a service, a something. We are all here for a reason, for a purpose. And if you leave this earth with that still in you, then it is a waste. And you have caused countless, innumerable damage that you could never even know about, because someone needs you, someone needs your voice, someone needs your words, someone needs your action, someone needs your help to lift them up, and then they can pay it forward, they can pass it on, because someone needs that voice and their words and their action. And that is really what it is all about. We celebrated different holidays, but this year I wanted to make sure that I really paid attention to the days of Kwanzaa. Those principles are so key to our community. And I'm not just, now, again, as Alex mentioned, we're always here for Black people, but community is equal. It is about collaboration. It is about working together. It is about being adjacent in the fight and in the struggle for equality for all. And so we're talking about, asshat and his commutations and pardons. I don't really give a damn that Lil Wayne might get a commutation or a pardon. I don't care, because at the end of the day, how does that help my community? How does that help the Black and brown people that are behind bars, that cannot participate in the billion-dollar marijuana industry that is taking over this country because they've been arrested for an ounce of marijuana? What happens when their sentence doesn't get commuted or pardoned, and they can't have the right to vote? They can't do certain things and have certain privileges in this country. That is the key to what we are really fighting. We're fighting not dying in the streets. We're fighting for food equality across the country. We're fighting for healthcare for all. That should not be a privilege. Healthcare should be a right. We need to change our mental health. I just had this conversation with a sister of mine yesterday. We need different mental health policies in this country, especially after being in a pandemic that seems to be going on and on. Some of the people that are out in Atlanta, God help us all, that are out in Atlanta partying and frolicking in the streets, I sound very old for saying frolicking, but whatever, is because they are tired of sitting in their house and they can't afford therapy, so they go to the club. Now, I'm not saying that that's an excuse, but I am saying that
they will also be dead. I mean, it is the facts, right?
But that is also
misinformation is really what you're totally on point, though, right? I wouldn't take anything away from that. I was watching an expert referring to what's happening about the extremism in the United States, and why these white people can't see that their people have been radicalized, right? It's so easy to see, but it's really and this is not about mainstream media or news, but what you see is what it is. After 9/11, everybody was afraid to walk around people with hijabs on or turbans on or get on a plane. And the prejudice and the racism jumped out of people everywhere on everything, right? But the problem is America refuses to frame. Now, history shows us very clearly that white people have been very violent. Okay? I should not be censored for this because I'm just talking about history. Okay? History shows that they have literally invaded every continent except the frozen one. And invaded it with disease and guns and death and morbid obscurities. Okay, that's the best word to use there. But if we just look at American history over the last 10 years, certain people, and it's not a question about this, shoot up, and it's like, oh, black on black crime. Listen, crime happens amongst people of the same racial makeup when they live amongst each other. So we're not doing that here. We don't do that here. But it's no secret who shoots up schools. That's terroristic, right? Or churches, black ones, who plots to actually go shoot up. There was a young girl in Gainesville, Georgia, who the Georgia Bureau of Investigation caught her because she was plotting to go shoot up a black church in Gainesville, Georgia. My point with this, extremism has certain qualities. And so people can become radicalized no matter your skin color. When there is a radical faction of people that have become radicalized, it's important for people to acknowledge that. And the expert that I was watching was just talking about how social media is like oxygen to fire. Social media is to extremism as oxygen is to fire, basically. And it was a great analogy because it's also perpetuation of misinformation, where, what is the most telling to me, which is probably more apropos for my show and not this platform, is that I know that it's not us that are out here being violent because we still want equality. It's like, oh, well, should Twitter really be taking away accounts from extremists? I mean, because the Constitution, they're trying to take over the country. Like, dial it back. The First Amendment is not without ramifications. It's not blanket. You could never go yell bomb in an airport. You can't do that. You can't yell fire in a public school or in a public square. You will go to jail for that.
Period.
First Amendment or not. So, but it's my black brothers and sisters that even have sympathy for these extremists. Well, I mean, they tried to take over the country, but really locking them out of their Twitter account? Are you? What?
We're too nice. And I don't know if that's church culture. I don't know if that's generational. I don't know what it is, but we are too nice.
Trauma.
We're too nice. And I'm not saying that we should, off with their heads. I'm not saying anything like that. But yes, take away their stupid ass Twitter account. That's the least that can happen. Like, go away. Y'all silenced a football player because he took a knee, because we're dying. Silence him.
He took his voice and his job.
So yeah, y'all can keep their little Twitter accounts. I don't care. Arrest their asses. Also, because had it been us storming a Capitol, we would have been dead. You would have shot us.
Let's talk about ammunition for a second, because I think one of the most confusing things to me, or people that have studied King or studied the civil rights movement in this country, or read, it's very baffling to see the same people that killed Dr. King quoting Dr. King. Right? Like, I think it's important to frame on this day that he's not the king that it was in the third grade textbook. He was a very strategic, calculated advocate. That it's important to note that he was killed by them. He was not celebrated when he was alive. That's the other myth that has to be dispelled every year. Well, people, Martin Luther King was like Gandhi. No,
he wasn't.
People hated Martin Luther King. Black people. I wish he would shut up. And as soon as I say this, you're going to know. Just like these white people know which one of their ancestors was down at the, and you haven't done it yet, FBI.gov/US Capitol. You can report your family and your friends. If you know they were there or they were plotting to be there, FBI.gov/US Capitol. We'll post it at the end of the show. That's important. You need to tell them to people. Because if I find out, I'm telling.
I'm a snitch. I'm a thing like a
But
canary.
I think it's important to say this, right? I think what we have to keep in mind and what we have to keep at the forefront of our thoughts is that because there's not a widespread culture of reading or consuming of information, there's a misunderstanding that Dr. King has just always been Dr. King. He was born, the Black Pope or the Black Messiah or whatever. He was not. Black people, and it's the same thing, right? Where I'm not confused, I know that this conversation is for certain people watching. Because everybody benefits, but everybody was not a part of the civil rights movement. I do not want things to be misclassified so that you misunderstanding what was happening. When these people were protesting non-violently, they were doing things let me tell you what that means. They were going places that they couldn't go. So when places literally said whites only, they would non-violently walk their black asses into there and sit at the lunch counter when they're supposed to get food from a back door with rats running around on the ground. So the cooks, the chefs, the townspeople spit in their plates, trip them, push them over, spray them with water hoses. And you know who wasn't going through that? Black folks, the same ones, probably your ancestors, they were like, I got to get to work. So I get all this rah-rah and Black Lives Matter and all this, but you need to move because I need my check. I'm trying to see Beyonce. And I love that. I do love it. I love the fact that we have, and we're going to talk culture if we don't run out of time, because I love that, but it's important to frame that it was not a large group of people that caused the changes. It was a small group of people, Abernathy, Jackson, King, people that were literally fighting for things that you could not see. Even watching One Night in Miami is very important to watch and understand that if you're interested. I understand that some of you may not be. And it's okay with being that person that's like, I just want the benefits. I don't want to do no work. I mean, I don't think that's really okay. I'm saying it's okay because that's the American way. But get out of the way. Don't be that complacent person. And I think I've made my point, Ashley, for the day. Don't be that person. Get out of the way. Right? If you were that parent,
I'm from Atlanta, so I'm ludicrous all the way.
That's why I'm with Keisha Lance Bottoms, who said it best. Move, bitch, get out the way. She said it better than Luda, if you ask me.
Welcome to Atlanta.
But I think it's an important framing, right? If you are that parent and you see that this activism or this concern for others or humanity is bubbling up in your child, and you're like, you need to stay out of the way, you need to stay in them books, this is not our fight, somebody else will handle it. Get out of the way.
And
because
don't
what's in them is very special. It's very special, but it's also very necessary. It's extremely necessary.
Don't stifle your children. Do not stifle your teenager. Do not stifle those. If you are raising a niece, a nephew, or whatever, bring that out in them. Support them. Show them the safe and show them the safest way to get involved in what they're trying to get involved in. It's never too early and they're never too young, especially to learn the history of their ancestors and the culture in this country. So don't stifle that. Don't belittle it. I think that, we still have a very, very long road ahead. One of the best exhibits I have been to is at the Atlanta Center for Civil and Human Rights, where they have the chairs set up as if you were sitting at the counter, and the chairs shake, and you can put the headphones on and hear some of the things that were being yelled at the peaceful protesters, like you mentioned, Alex, who went and did lunch sit-ins. It's heartbreaking, but that gave us the opportunity to have brunch, to have Sunday, to have Saturday morning brunch, to go out with our friends.
Listen, to get your best life.
To be able to do that. And so I think
your best life.
All of that. So I think it's important for us to continue to do what we have to do in our time here on this earth that God has made, to not just sit by, but to stand up and stand by, to stand up and get ready for action, to stand up and take action, to stand up and do what needs to be done. There have been over 200,000 tips dealing with the Capitol riot sent to the FBI. Over 200,000. Keep turning your family members in. Keep snitching. I'll support you. I'll put a little change on your books if I need to.
You told on us.
Okay. So
you might as well.
do what
FBI.gov/US Capitol. I check it daily to make sure it's still active and that they're still doing what we taxpayers paid them to do. And that is fine. You people that tried to take over this country that we are still fighting to live in equally.
And I said it when we did our special edition on the Capitol attack. I don't give a damn if it takes every day during the Biden-Harris administration. I want every last person that was there found and brought to charges. Every single one. Because you attempted a coup. You planned to kidnap either Nancy Pelosi or Mike Pence. You had zip ties to kidnap them. There was a breach in intelligence.
You came to the Capitol Square with a noose. Erected a noose. And you Christians, I can't even today. I can't even. I can
tomorrow on my show at Tiffanie Talks.
I can't.
It returns. I will be there. It is not, I don't care if you're Christian, Jew, atheist, agnostic. Get your ass in this fight. Don't just be an ally, be an accomplice, be in this fight. Figure out a way, find a way, whether it's one of the many ways that we mentioned during this show or that we've mentioned in other shows, to get involved. Make sure that your local high school, middle school, elementary school has quality books. Right. Make sure that those who need lunch get it. Make sure, here in Atlanta, they put boulders under the freeways, displacing the individuals experiencing homelessness. I'm pissed about it. I'm currently looking for initiatives and programs to help those displaced individuals. Pay attention to stuff like that. There are a plethora of ways to get involved, but you have to crawl up from your rock of protection or fear or complacency or whatever your rock is representing. It's time to step out from under it, be courageous, and get involved in the fight of equality and justice for all, period, no matter what color. It's just time. You're not exempt. And I don't agree with Alex. It's not okay to just reap the benefit. Your ass should be doing something. I don't care if it's replaced with the library.
Listen, I don't think I didn't say that as like that's my belief, but I say that so that you could just move unanimously out of the way. Okay? Get out of the way. Move. Go. Like you're really in the way for real, some real work that has to be done. And what I'll say, like I said, I think that piece, that's what I will say. I think that we will continue to fight. And let's be honest and transparent, right? My life was headed in a whole different direction. My media career was not headed to sit here and talk about Black issues and Black life and Black advancement and as Black as I am and always been. This was not the lane I was headed in. I'm here. I'm here. So when you see it, let's talk about it. When you see it, we will talk about it. We will continue to do programming like this so that it permeates minds and hearts and ears and moves into spaces that we can't see, right? It moves into spaces when we are sleeping, but somebody else needs to watch it because somebody else needs that hope. And getting back to King and bringing this full circle, Martin Luther King is not where it was supposed to end. And oftentimes we get to holidays and say, oh, that was such a great man, or that was such a great time. They did such great things. And when you think about the presidents, or I'm sorry, when you think about holidays, it's always to reflect. Labor Day, Veterans Day, President's Day, the 4th of July. These are holidays that are spent really where we commemorate what happened, not what's happening. And I think that's the difference with the King holiday. It has to be about an active movement, something that's not dead, something that's alive, something that's moving, something that's chugging along, something that's pushing things out of the way, pushing policy through, pushing policy, pushing people, pushing equality, pushing love, pushing acceptance, pushing those things. Until we're able to do that, we can't sleep.
Yeah. Period. That's period. I don't have anything else.
Well, let the people know where they can find you tomorrow.
You can find me tomorrow. Tiffanie Talks actually returns tomorrow at 11 a.m. So you can find me on BossFM Talk, 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern time. And you can follow me on all of my social media at Tifflanelle, TIFFLANELLE. Tune in tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. Well, Unmuted Nation also returns tomorrow. Pray for yourself, okay? Because we're coming back. The cabinet returns, and right after Tiffanie Talks, you can just download that BossFM app right now. Open, click talk. It's changing soon. There's a new app coming, but it's easy enough right now. Click shows or click channels, click talk, turn it on at 11 and listen till 3 Eastern time. I'm there at Unmuted Nation. Tiff is there at Tiffanie Talks. And that concludes our MLK Day special programming today. This broadcast will re-air tonight at 10 p.m. not only on BossFM but on our social platforms. So if you missed any part, share it tonight when you see it again. And listen, do the work. Just do the work. That's it. If you're listening to BossFM Talk right now, you return to your regular programming. We are out of here, and we will see you with hopefully some other people that want to do the work at this same spot next year. Have a good evening.
Good night.